creating all reality. I'm the middle between what earth and heaven brings. I am the I am the we. Yeah. Higher consciousness. Let's go higher, higher in our consciousness. Yeah. Let's go higher, higher consciousness. I'm on my way. Let's go higher. I'm going today. Consciousness. Yeah. Let's go higher. I'm gonna touch the sky with my mind. Holding time. Clouds passing by. Clouds passing by. I'm gonna touch the stars. It's not very far. There is no limit to how high I can fly. Let's go higher in our consciousness. Come on, let's go higher. You can go consciousness if you want to. Let's go higher. Let's go higher in our consciousness. Higher consciousness. Oh, yeah. Let's go higher. It only takes one step, one idea. Let's go higher. Let's go higher. Let's go. Let's go higher.
All right.
Let's go higher.
It's that food. Peace, and blessings. And welcome. Welcome and welcome back. Oh, we have a lot of folks in here. Welcome, everybody. In a minute. Welcome to Kamitic Legacy broadcast. I'm your host, M. Tahuti Kamo. Serve as an Orwa in the Osair Society. And I'm excited to be here with you tonight as we're approaching the holy days. So I want to say peace and blessings to you, especially, well, I see a lot of familiar family faces. Well, I see names, right? At Tapu. And I'd like to know if you're here for the first time. Do we have any first timers here on Kamitic Legacy broadcast? And by the way, put a all good in the chat for me if you can hear me well. We're broadcasting from Philadelphia. We have a drum class wrapping up right now, so I don't know if you're hearing drumming or not. Yes, Sharice, thank you. All good, beautiful. Gwendolyn Ebron, welcome, first time. Who else is here for the first time? Geraldine, welcome. Boy, the chat is moving fast. All right, excellent. And we have Sharon Brown, welcome. Are you from Philadelphia, Sharon? Sound familiar. Stephen Ashman, welcome. All right, Edwin Kesataya, welcome. Empress New, all good. First time, Nakasha Pitson, welcome. Excellent. And Marie, welcome. Oh, this is great. Yes, you are. I'm excited for you. You know, my job is just to introduce a very special person to you. Some of you are meeting him for the first time in person, perhaps on a broadcast. And he's a man that's been ahead of his time for a long time, right? We're celebrating this year 50 years of his contribution to the spiritual development of the African community throughout the world and the spiritual development of the world at large. 50 years. And when I say ahead of his time, he introduced veganism in Harlem. Okay, just picture this. back in the 1970s, 1973. He almost got ran out of there. Right? He'd taken people off of chicken and even fish and so on. Now it's like all the rage. I just heard the other day that Tom Brady's a vegan. I didn't know that. So many vegan, it's popular, and you can go in any store now and you can get vegan this and vegan that, and people talking about natural foods and eating, healthy and plant-based diet and all of this. Just imagine that was 1973, right? That's 50 years ago. At that time, he introduced us to the solstices and the equinoxes 50 years ago. People talking about the solstice now like it's something they just discovered. He's been practicing, introduced that understanding of the solstices and the equinoxes. That's the astronomical, right, basis of what we call the solar cycle or the year, and introduced fasts and cleansing according to the seasons. Understanding the connection between your organ energy systems. Your liver needs to be cleansed, particularly in the summer, and your lung in the fall, and so on. This is 50 years of working with this, introducing it, practicing it himself, and most importantly, having the opportunity to observe the effects of these practices on a large population of people over an extended period of time. Because we live today, it's not the same as people living in ancient times. It's not the same as people living even 50 years ago in terms of the food, the toxins, the environment, the air you're breathing, the water you're drinking, the level of perhaps stress or electromagnetic poisoning from all the devices, and light poisoning from living in a world that never sleeps. It's a different time, it's a different environment. And when you apply ancient spiritual practices, or you're attempting to do so on different populations, you got to take a scientific approach. And that's one of many things that we love about him, is that we could even say we're scientarians. We're not just vegan or vegetarian. We're scientarians, meaning everything that we espouse in our diet is something that, through his diligence, not only has he researched, not only has he worked with, but he's also validated, right, through the scientific method. So tonight we're going to talk about something so very important, and that is the understanding that time and cycles plays a major role in everything from our physical well-being, our psychological or mental well-being, our performance, our ability to perform, and definitely our ability to accomplish the important things that we need to accomplish in our lives, right? And I know, put a 1 in the chat if you have some important things to accomplish in your life, and you're thinking about the fact that we're leaving 2023 behind, and we're going into unknown territory, right? Especially in the United States, what's going on in the world, 2024. If you're looking to have an edge, if you're looking to have the type of knowledge and practice, your own, practice, your own devotion to certain things that will work, that will give you the ability to adapt to whatever changes happen, that will give you the ability to meet whatever obstacles might come your way, whatever social conditions might come your way, give you the ability to accomplish those important goals in your life, right? I see you. That's right. That's what we want. So that's what we're here for tonight. And tonight is part 1. On Sunday, this Sunday, in Brooklyn, those of you that are in New York have the opportunity to have the second part of this conversation when we will be at Nicholas, a institution for culture in the Black community right there in the heart of Brooklyn, 1396 Fulton Street, right? We're going to be in Brooklyn, and don't worry if you're not in New York. We are going to be live streaming on our Facebook channels, and also we'll have a webinar room. In fact, do me a favor, right? One of you, if you can scan this code on the top right there, right under where it says Nicholas Brooklyn. I know that comes across kind of small, but somebody's sitting there with a computer monitor, right? And you got your phone. Let me know if you can scan that, because that's how you're going to register to be able to get the stream, the live stream of this event. This is when we're actually going to roll out the full Winter Solstice program and enable you to be able to participate if you happen not to be. Okay, Tatiana, I see you. New Jersey in the house. It scans, okay, and that will bring you to a form, a registration form, just like you did tonight, right? And then there's also going to be spiritual readings done. So we'll talk about that at the end, just to remind you. But I want to. Okay, great, Siddiqui, good to see you. Marcia, great. There's a scan below that, because we're going to be doing spiritual readings at Nicholas in Brooklyn. From 3 o'clock to 7. So there's a 4-hour window. It's going to be very limited. We probably can only see maybe 30, 40 people. So if you're really interested in that, you want to scan that, fill out the form, right? And then we will get back in touch with you and make sure that you get scheduled to come in. But at 7 o'clock, that's when the lecture is going to take place. And I have a chance to go back home to Brooklyn, see some of you all in person. And I'm also going to be bringing some planners and journals and calendars and stuff with me. So it's going to be a great evening in Brooklyn this Sunday, the 17th. This Sunday, the 17th, at from 3 to 9, actually. So 3 to 7 is readings, 7 to 9. Shechem or Shechem. That's what we refer to him as, for those of you that are new. That's the ancient Kamitic term of respect for the king, for a spiritual leader of the nation. So Shechem or Shechem, Ra Un Nefer Amen will be there in Brooklyn live to talk to us about the solstice and to roll out a powerful program. So with that being said, it is my honor and my pleasure to bring to you. Can you put some claps in the chat if you care to? Shechem or Shechem, Ra Un Nefer Amen, and we greet you in the ancient words of power and peace. Un Nefer Ra, to you, Shechem Shechem. Good to see you. Good to be back.
Good to be back with the lovely audience.
Yes. There's 509 people in here, up 511 just in the webinar room. And then we are on, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Facebook and YouTube channels. I can't count those people. So welcome everybody, and glad to have you here, sir. Important time and important topic.
Yes, indeed. Let me begin by saying Hotep to everyone, and giving thanks to the Supreme Being, which we call Neb Ercher in a ancient Kamitic language. Neb Ercher. Neb is Lord, Ercher is of all. So we refer to the Supreme Being as Neb Ercher, which automatically tells you that the ancient Egyptians, the Kamo, knew that there was one God. Mm-hmm. You see that we were monotheists from the get-go. Mm-hmm. For those people who try to say that, ancient Egypt was polytheistic, therefore backwards and savage and so forth, mm-hmm. Trying to hide the truth. And, but let's get into the solstice itself, right? And I want to begin to say that the popular interest in the solstice, as you said, we've been doing it for 50 years already, mm-hmm. but it has become popular in the last 10 years or so. When people began to take more notice of a structure of large stones in a circle in the United Kingdom, and they call it Stonehenge. You see that? And they realized that, if you stood a certain place in that structure, you could see the sun rising at sunrise at the winter solstice. So they realized that Stonehenge was some type of celestial clock that enabled the people who built it to know when the winter solstice, came. And because the people who lived at the time when the structure was constructed, were agriculturalists, scientists today, came to the conclusion that Stonehenge was some agricultural, landmark of, time landmark and so on. And they began to speculate as to, what kind of ceremonies and rituals were conducted. And to this day, they're all, confused and speculating about, the winter solstice. But the thing is that if we go through we look at ancient Egypt, there were three pyramids: the pyramid of Khufu, Khafra, and Menkaure Ra, the king and his two sons. They built the three largest stone Masonic pyramids of Egypt, and they together, gives up the Khufu pyramid, shows the winter solstice, and the three of them, the Khufu, the Menkaure Ra, and the Khafra, triangulate certain key stars in heaven to show that there was no accident, no spoof, very clearly deliberated, application of astronomy and the science of, geomagnetism, okay, and cycles and so on. So the thing is, and we could spend the rest of the night talking about, the geomagnetic, nature of, the energies that are chronicled by the pyramids and so on. But I'd like to get right into the importance, of the winter solstice. The winter solstice marks the beginning of the year. You see that? And when you say the beginning of the year, you could talk about an agricultural year, we could talk about a financial year, we can talk about a governmental year, what kind of year are we speaking about? And the thing is that the ancient Egyptians realized that, the faculties that govern man's ability to achieve things in the world, to grow, to be successful, followed a 12-month cycle. And, a cycle, measured by, certain, Earth-Sun relationships, called the declination of the sun. You see that? So that when the sun in relationship to Earth reaches its highest declination, meaning, its highest deviation from the equatorial line, which is the 23 degrees, a few minutes or whatever, we have the winter solstice. You see it? And which marks the beginning of the psychical year, the spiritual year. You see that? Meaning that the psychical and spiritual processes that are responsible for your well-being and success and undertakings in the world, begins at the winter solstice and begin to wax very strong, in the next, 6 months, and peaks at the summer solstice, only to recede once more again and reach its lowest point at December the 20th, for the renewal of the year again. So, we grow we apply ourselves to achieving things in the world, through the help of these cycles. But you have to know them and you have to keep track of them. And that's the reason why Khufu, the great king, spent so much, resources, human resources, and materials to build the Great Pyramid, at Giza, and his two sons, Menka, Ra, and Khafra, built their pyramids also to make sure that the people, wedded their efforts to the cycles of the faculties within them. Let me give you an example. You take, for example, your biological functions, the blood pressure, you know, uh, oxygen capacity, okay, your circulatory system, okay, uh, your ability to get pregnant, the menopausal, rhythm of women. All of these faculties, are cyclical. Your blood pressure doesn't remain even all day long. It tanks, in the middle, towards 3 o'clock in the morning and peaks around 3 p.m. in the afternoon. And all of our functions are on a biological clock. And so is the ability to meditate, to connect with God, to connect and leverage your psychical abilities, your spiritual abilities. So it's very important for you to know these cycles and to work with them, so that you do not end up trying to swim, against the tide, against the stream, so that you can leverage the flow of energy to support your efforts. So, we've been celebrating this for almost 50 years now, the last 50 years. And this is what has given us the insight into the nature of the winter solstice, because the ancients did not leave an academic, set of instructions on what the solstice is and how to observe it and things of that nature. So after 50 years, of applying ourselves and looking at results and studying, people and so forth, we came to the realization that the winter solstice is nothing more than a marker that tells us this is the beginning of a cycle of growth and productivity and accomplishment. And it peaks 6 months later at the summer solstice. And then it begins to tank, meaning that, if you begin, for example, to put your greatest effort into achieving your goals, your large goals, if you start at the winter solstice, then you have the support of the geomagnetic forces, of the earth to achieve your goal. If you begin that project, let's say on June the 30th, for example, then you don't no longer have the support of the geomagnetic force and things of that nature. You see that? You might be asking, well, what do you mean by geomagnetic force? Well, when animals, pigeons and all the animals fly from the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere when the winter comes, they're following a geomagnetic highway. They're being guided by what we call ley lines, geomagnetic, streams. You see that? Okay, and our body reacts to this force. This force is what turns the needle of a compass. So the geomagnetic force can turn the needle of a compass. It also affects you. And your receptors for the geomagnetic forces are what the ancient yogis called the chakras, meaning that we have, electromagnetic and geomagnetic, structures within us that assimilate these forces and affect our ability to function successfully if we work with them, and to have a bad and rough time if we work against them, with full ignorance that they are harming us. So it's important for you to understand that there's this beautiful ancient science that recognizes and enables people to take advantage of them and harmonize with them. In the Taoist tradition of ancient China, they are called, the science is called feng shui. For example, you see that. In the yogic tradition is called, of course, Kundalini yoga. Okay, and I wrote a book, Light on Kundalini Yoga, where I showed that there are 14 chakras, not 7, chakras as we have been, misguided to believe. The proof is there. You see that? So we are proud to announce that we have made tremendous progress in our understanding and presentation, of, the not only what we call the winter solstice. It's the beginning of a 3-month period of renewal of our psychical, body. It's a renewal of our spiritual body. Okay, so you're not going to get much benefit from just meditating on the 4 days of the solstice. That's the beginning of a process that begins, on December the 20th and goes all the way to March, the 20th. Meaning that, come the solstice, if you just simply meditated for those 4 days, every psychologist will tell you cannot make, significant changes in your life and conduct and performance with 1 or 4 days of meditation. You have to dedicate at least 21 consecutive days, armed with a very powerful system that, has the full understanding of man's, inner mechanism, the spirit, the psyche, the mind, and so on. So this is what we have put together. So, let us begin to unpack it through a series of questions that Oda will provide, and I will, so that we can chunk it and put it in the right perspective.
Yes, sir. So, Shechem, we know from certain animal behavior, like bears and so forth, they go into a hibernation type of thing in this winter season. Is this what you're speaking about when you say you're using the term geomagnetic forces? Is that what they're following that guides their
Well,
instinct?
in the case of the hibernation of bears and those animals, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are following the winter season. You see that? But the solstice is a geomagnetic force, meaning, like you take, for example, people in the northern hemisphere, extreme northern hemispheres, right?
Mm-hmm.
The solstice happens to coincide with the winter months. So the behavior of the animals will be more geared towards the winter, the cold setting in, so they begin to, the system triggers a response to conserve energy and vitality. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
You take it, for example, the ancient Egyptians, okay, and who they exist. The location was 4 degrees north, right? They're just a few degrees away from the equator.
Mm-hmm.
So in ancient Egypt, which leaves the world in understanding of the solstice and what it means and so forth, they never experienced a winter, like the north, and so on. Yet they also took opportunity of that time to go within their spirit, within the psyche, to purify and regenerate. You see that? The same thing in Mexico and Peru, where they have, pyramids that are also linked to the solstices and equinoxes. They do not respond in a manner that is, let's say, associated with the season of the winter.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I say the driving force is a geomagnetic force. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that the same cycle that occurs in a period of a year, you see that, occurs with the same set of energies, but in the period of 24 hours as well, meaning that we experience a 24-hour circling of the same forces that take a year, you see, to, and we call it, the winter cycle, the summer solstice and the winter solstice, or whatever. But that cycle occurs also in 24 hours. It also occurs monthly. You see that? It also occurs, you see, every 12 years as well. You see that. So, just not annually. So since the fourth, meaning we know that winter does the winter summer, which is a 12-month cycle, doesn't reproduce itself in 24 hours or a month. You see that? But those Germanic forces, they do that. They do repeat, on those periodic levels.
So in terms of learning how to live in harmony with those cycles, and you mentioned not swimming upstream, but linking our goals and our work to these cycles, how would you distinguish the monthly cycle versus the annual cycle versus in other words, what's the importance of how we tend to track our lives from year to year? Is there something significant about the 12-month cycle?
Well, the 12-month cycle is the period in which the faculty that governs our ability, to deal with the major concerns of life. You see that? Those faculties are on a 12-month, cycle of periodicity. You see that? So it doesn't make any sense to try to work with a 24-hour, aspect of that cycle, or a monthly aspect, and so on. And the people who deal with that tracking are the people who are, the great, Bazi masters and feng shui masters and so on.
Yeah, I raised the point because a lot of us, whether we're doing New Year's resolution, or a lot of people, they try to do planning for their business, their career, whatever. And just over the years, I've noticed that most people just don't, including myself, you say you're going to do certain things, and 2 or 3 months into the year, when you speak to people, it's like, oh yeah, I got to get back to that. Or, it doesn't seem like people can really hold on to the plan and to the execution through a period of a year. Is that because of not applying meditation or other techniques to it?
Well, the ancient people understood that, and they divided the year into 4 major cycles, 4 major sub periods. You see, or shall we say 4 major periods, meaning a set of ceremonies and meditations were done at the winter solstice. Another set, that's December 20th to 24th. Another set of rituals and meditations were done at the spring equinox, because other faculties take over, at that time. Then another set of rituals were done on the summer solstice. As a matter of fact, Christmas was, which is part of the ideation around, the renewal of those faculties, used to be celebrated in Rome in June, not in December 25th, but June 25th. You see that? Okay, and another set of ceremonies were then done at the autumnal, equinox. And it's not a question of people not, having the mindset to stick with it. Is that a different set of faculties, are in charge of each quarter of the year. You see that? Meaning that, from December to March, those 3 months, we need to dedicate ourselves to renewing, our divine self-image, and to renewing our relationship with God. You see that? It's, in other words, during the winter months, which is triggered by the winter solstice. You see that? We're going to spend those 3 months, renewing our union with God. You see that? In other words, when we get into the business of living the conflicts and the hustle and bustle, we tend to, lose our connection with God, and spiritual things. And so we become more transactional and so on. So the winter months, triggered by the winter solstice, those 3 months are best utilized, let's say, renewing our oneness with God, and then now cleaning out. There's a chakra called the Swadhisthana. You see that? which has been named the sex chakra. You see that? It's really the chakra that governs our emotionality and sensuality, no matter what kind its presentation. So it's time to purify that, to put the seed, you see, that will drive our psychic energy to the accomplishment of our goals. You see that? So that's the work that we need to focus on from December to March. Renew or establish for the first time our relationship with God. You see that? Lots of people don't know that God is there waiting for us to partner with God. You see that? Okay? Because we are limited in our knowledge, our power, our presence throughout the universe. We're limited, okay? And we need divine help to achieve our goals. And the time to establish that union or renew it and to strengthen it is the winter months. You see that? Then now come the spring. If we find that we are short in inventive and creative ability and partner with others, partnering skills, then we can, if we choose to, we can then now strengthen the chakras and the spiritual faculties that are in charge of our creativity and our partnering with other people and so on. So each part of the year, each quarter of the year, a different set of faculties, are devoted to, the different areas of our life. You see that?
Well, Shekim, you picked up on my question before I could ask it, and that was, I know many people like myself who, after being educated about religion and supposedly religious-based nations and the things that they've done in the world. We see an example of this right now in front of us, the so-called Holy Land, are questioning maybe not whether there is a God, but exactly how to understand God and how to be able to verify within themselves, they're turning to spirituality, maybe thinking that there's a cosmic forces or whatever. I mean, when you say to them, establish, number one, your relationship with God, and then number two, your self-identity within that, how will the solstice and the process that you're outlining help people that are in that type of a position where they might not be atheistic, but they might call themselves, they don't know, they're agnostic or whatever you would say?
Well, it's very simple. If the scientists, right, Elon Musk or whatever, were one day to take a rocket that landed on Venus or Mars or whatever, and they found, let's say, a car, on Mars, they will conclude that, some creature with at least the intelligence of man built that and put that car there. They will know that that car, appearance of that car, could not have been, the result of some random cosmic activity. You see that? The science that goes into making that car would say an intelligent, living, conscious creature is responsible for that car. You see that? So when we look at the complexity of living things on Earth, when we look at the complexity of chemistry and physics and so on, how could you not conclude that these things are the result of an intelligent entity? You understand what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Call the entity God, call the entity Allah, call the entity Jehovah, call the entity Nebuchadnezzar. I don't care what you call it. The fact is that you would conclude that it was an extremely, very powerful, intelligent entity.
Mhm.
that makes man's intelligence look like a puny little thing. Is responsible for the creation of the universe.
Mhm. Mhm.
So there's a double play there, you know. In other words, if you are agnostic, so-called, then you don't know science
Mhm.
and what science means.
Mhm.
You see that?
Mhm.
Because where there's science, there's intelligence, and with intelligence, there's a being that is,
Mhm.
you know, using its intellectual faculties, you know, and its abilities to make things happen.
Now, as far as our relationship with that being and our self-image, you mentioned that this was the time of year that these rituals are centered around having the proper self-image. Can you explain that a little bit further?
Well, the winter months is a time, the 3 months of the winter is a time for you to cultivate your union with God.
Mm.
The premise, the underlying premise is that, you know, we are limited in our ability to know, in our ability to achieve, and with our ability to influence each other, you know, to get help, you know, from others and to help others. We are limited. Now, everywhere in the world, the attributes of God is, you know, unlimited knowledge, that's omniscience, unlimited presence, that's omnipresence, and unlimited power, which is omnipotence. So the whole basis of religion and spirituality, the ultimate essential basis of spirituality and religion is for man to, you know, partner with God, to enter into a relationship with God to supplement and complement man's limitations.
Mhm.
So this is what the meditations of the winter months, you know, are focused on. Is for us to establish or renew and invigorate, you know, our relationship with God so that we can be more successful in the efforts to achieve our goals. You
Mhm.
see that?
Mhm.
Otherwise, you can go it alone and then complain about the suffering and how life is hard and and blame your failures on, you know, some political party or certain groups of races of people and so on. No, the major source of problem in the world is man, you know, lack of connection to God.
Mm.
Man is ignorant. God is, exceedingly wise. Man is impotent. God, and you will get that assistance, you know, if you approach, you say God the right way. And this is the course that we have put together for you to learn how to connect with God.
Mhm.
You see that? Some people say, oh, you know, God dwells within us and we dwell within God. But how? And how does that manifest itself? You know,
Mhm.
how do we leverage that? How do we use that? You know, how do we connect? You know, in other words, does God, you know, reside in everybody? The answer is yes, but God is not active in everybody. You know, you have to do certain moral and ethical and spiritual things and meet certain, you know, requirements for you to benefit from God's presence within you. It would
Mhm.
be a total, you know, crazy thing for, you know, an immoral person, you know, in the midst of his or her immorality, to claim that has blessed them with riches.
Mhm.
Then why live the moral life? Why be ethical if you can
Mhm.
get, you know, help from God, you know, regardless of how you live your life? You see that?
Mhm. Mhm. And Shechem, you, in referring to the work that you'll be releasing to the public in this course, this course for the winter solstice, you use the term Osair Ra as the foundation of the work. And I know you mentioned self-image, and I'm sure a lot of us on the call today know that to a number of things, but one of the things is our own divine self-image. So how what is the basis of the Osair Ra as a foundation of what we're going to be working with?
Well, unfortunately, the Egyptologists have explained Ra as a sun.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The truth is, and they know very well that the word for the sun in ancient Egypt is Aten, Aten, Aten. You see that? That's the name for, the sun. And the reason they hide it is because, Adon or Adonai, you see, the Lord, is also a name for the sun. In the Hebrew is Adonai, and they wanted to hide it when the Christian says, they say, thank you, Lord. They want to hide the fact that this Lord is God, but at the same time, the Son. So they don't want to establish that nation that they're calling the Son the Lord. So Aten is the name, and as in the Pharaoh that was the sun worshiper, Anaten. He was a sun worshiper. That he was converted to sun worship, by the Mitanni wife, Tagopika, that people call Nefertiti. She was a Mitanni from Europe. You see that? And she brought sun worship into Egypt and so on. So Aten is the name for the sun. Ra is the name for the spirit. All you got to do is to go through all the different, holy texts about Ra, and you find that what they are, describing is what we call the spirit. It's that. And the blessing that the spirit confers upon, man and so forth. So the spirit is, a vehicle that is made up of many faculties. The same way your physical body is made up of different faculties, the respiratory, system, the digestive system, the reproductive system, many different organ systems and so forth. Your spirit is made up, meaning Ra is made up of different, faculties as well. As a matter, there's an Egyptian scripture called the Book of Knowing the Transformations of Ra and Destroying Apep, meaning the evil. You see, the transformation, meaning that the spirit starts off, as a singularity, and it goes through various transformations to manifest what we call angels and archangels. This is a well-established theme in spirituality and religion, for those who take the time to study. So Osair is that faculty of the spirit, right? Where your consciousness will take up residence, when you have, when you are working devotedly to achieve your divinity. You see that? That faculty is also where, God resides within you. Is what is metaphorically referred to as the Holy of Holies. As that part of your spirit, where you, let's say, once you enter into communion and communication with God, you see that takes place in that faculty of the spirit called the Osair. You see that? Okay? And you see, and in the yogic tradition, it's the Ajna chakra. Keeping in mind that the later invaders of India, refer them as chakras, but the original Aborigines of India that gave the world a system, they refer to them as, the repositories of gods and goddesses. You see that? So, the Ajna chakra is the same as the Osair faculty of the spirit. So the work that we do in the winter months is to, awaken and arouse that chakra, the Ajna, or that neter, the faculty of the spirit, so that we can, so our consciousness, that's who we are, can take up residence in that part of the spirit. You see that? If our chakra is take up residence in the lower part of the spirit, then we get bombarded with all the mundane, desires and things of that nature. You see that? There's a verse in the Bible that speaks of the different mansions, in the Father's house. You see that? There are many mansions in the house of my Father, to that effect. And these mansions are really the different faculties of the spirit. So it becomes so arousing it and invigorating it is the most important thing that you can do for yourself during the winter months.
So if you're just joining us, we're speaking with Shechem or Shechem, Ra Un Nefer Amen. He's the author of the Medu Neter series, volumes 1 through 7. He is the person who intuited the Medu Neter oracle system. And again, at the end of this conversation, we're going to be in Brooklyn next week, and we'll be doing readings with this amazing Medu Neter oracle system. There is an error on the form. There's a free lecture from 7 to 9 p.m. The readings are $40. The readings are not free. So when you fill out the form at the end, you'll get information on how to make an appointment if that's something that you're interested in. So Shechem or Shechem, some people who are just joining us and, they hear the references to Kemet in ancient Egypt. But then they also hear you speaking about chakras, which we associate with India, and Gua, which is a Taoist reference. Now, I know there's a story that many people are familiar with of the story of Osair, where he was killed and his body was cut up and spread around the world. It seems that you, in your journey, in your spiritual work, have been collecting pieces from around the world. Can you speak a little bit about that synthesis that you've been able to bring forth and how that's at play in this course? And before you do, I just wanted to say that it was one of the most amazing things for me, being a person searching, when I read volume 1 of the Medu Neter, where you gave us some of those keys to be able to see the unity between the Kamitic, the Yoruba, the Akan, the Bantu, the Indus Kush or ancient India, China, and so on.
Yeah, the Chinese have a proverb that a wise man, a sage, does not eat at home. You see that? In other words, if you really want to be well nurtured, you have to travel around the world and get your food for thought in distant lands and other lands. And I have a joke about that God saw, the problem with man and make sure that the wisdom for man's, salvation was spread around the world so that you would have to, make peace with your fellow man dwelling in other places, because we all dependent on one another. There's an interdependence that governs the world, which is a lesson that most nations have not yet learned. As soon as a nation, has, some riches in them, somebody else wants to take it away from them. Lots of people don't know that in the West Bank, they discovered a large cache of oil and gas. Could that be the bone of contention? In Guyana, they just found the same thing, a large cache of oil and gas. Now the Venezuelans, who have their own oil and gas, want to invade Guyana and take it away from them. There's more than enough in this world, but people are caught up in the lower part of their being. And there will never, and I want my audience to listen very carefully, there will never be salvation for mankind, until and unless, the majority of the people or the most influential people, and engage in their spiritual education and spreading spirituality throughout the world. You see that? It is the human identity and the human imprisonment of people's mind that is the cause of all the problems in the world. That is the cause of people marching blindly to a precipice of global warming. They see very clearly that there will not be an earth left for our grandchildren or for those on this call here that will be around another 40, 50 years. Yet they keep marching. They keep doing the same thing as if there was not a precipice in front of them. That's what a lack of spirituality brings. You see that? You see? So, we have to understand that right now, the spiritual knowledge that we need. We have, for example, the overarching framework in the Kamitic, the ancient Egyptian records. You see that? Okay, we have, the overarching, framework and substance for the understanding of the psyche in the Taoist tradition of ancient China. We have the understanding of the spirit in Kemet. Okay, we have the understanding of the different heikal or mantras, meaning the power of sound, in the heritage of the Aboriginal Indians, of the Hindu people. You see that before they became Hindu. And then we have the survival of the ancient traditions, in the nations, indigenous cultures of Africa and South America and, Southeast Asia and so on. Okay. But we need for anthropologists to stop going to these places, saying that they're studying savages and primitive people, when these people have, a knowledge of advanced spirituality way beyond, they could even dream that exists. So the world has to begin, people think that the Salvation world is going to be bringing economics and the knowledge of science to the world. No, that's what's endangering the world right now. Yes, do your science and your chemistry, whatever, but above all, educate yourself spiritually. You see that? Convert yourself into the spiritual being that you were made, that you put on this earth to become. Otherwise, we will not survive.
So I appreciate some there's some questions in the chat. We are up against our first hour, but I did want to ask Shekum, you mentioned chakras, and I know working with the chakras, and you mentioned the Swadhisthana chakra, that is central to the work that will be done this season. And from what I understand, some other chakras will also be included in the work as we go throughout the year. Can you just speak a little bit about, in your book, you identified what we would call the psychic chakras versus the spiritual chakras, and how these psychic chakras, I believe in the beginning you said, were responding to the geomagnetic force?
Well, the reference to the geomagnetic force was to let you understand that is the winter solstice and the winter months work and the spring work is not based on the seasons. You see that? It's not driven by weather or seasonal. It is a geomagnetic force that operates not only on an annual level, but operates in a 12-year cycle period, 24-hour cycle, a monthly cycle, where the same, qualities cycle throughout these different periods. You see that? Okay? So the thing, though, is that people have to realize, that the work that we are doing for, during this period, December 20th to March the 3rd, you see that? Is to lay the foundation for our success throughout the year. You see that? If people do it the right way, they may not have to do, the other, meditation that come up. You see that? But what we got to understand is that, these cyclical, observations, are reproduced in other religions. We find that, among the Jews and the Muslims and the Christians, their holiest, observed days occur around, these 4 periods of the year. You see that? but the dates are slightly different, And then I believe right now we have Rosh Hashanah, right? The Jews, is it Rosh Hashanah?
Or Hanukkah, right?
Hanukkah, I'm sorry, Hanukkah.
Hanukkah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it is within that cycle, and if you penetrate into it, you will find that, certain similar themes that we will undertake. You understand that? For example, one of the themes of the winter cultivation is for you to, for the students to master the faculty that governs, the manifestation of peace within them. If you haven't mastered the manifestation of peace, then you're vulnerable to anger, fear, worry, grief, stress, all of the different wayward emotions that will damage your life, your health, your performance, and so on. So that when the Christian talks about peace to the world, right? Peace to all men, in the Christmas, they're really, echoing a theme, of the winter practice that is triggered, by the winter solstice, so we're dealing with the same thing. The difference is that the Kamitic understanding, the Taoist understanding, is that you cannot bring peace to others until you have mastered the peace within you. You see that? If you are a subject, to fears and anger and so forth, you are going to be a source of warfare. You're going to be a source of conflict and cruelty to others. You will nourish the conflicts. You cannot bring peace to the world as long as emotions and sensuality control you. So you have to work and establish that within you. And this is part of the work that you have to do. You cannot teach others to be, about peace and sing songs about peace for all men and goodwill to all men until you have mastered all of the negative emotions that you are subject to. Because, any negative emotion will eventually make you, betray, your lower human nature.
Mm-hmm.
You see that?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so do we have time for some questions from the audience, Shekim?
Sure.
All right, great. So, we have someone who chimed in on what you said about Guyana. That's actually in Guyana right now.
Okay. Peace and blessings.
Osair Neteru Gaia, looks like. All right, so we have, yes, there's some questions about books, and we do have some announcements coming up about republishing and new editions. But chakras says, what is the correct order to start working with the chakras? Is the work done in numerical order or cyclical order?
Well, there are different frameworks for working with the chakra. And the best one is this course, this Winter Solstice course that we put together. Is the best way to work with the chakras, because the chakras, their power wax and wane. You see that? And the first of the chakras is the Swadhisthana, which, begins to activate itself in the winter months, in December. You see that? So, starting with this winter solstice will enable you to work with the Vishuddha chakra to purify and empower the Swadhisthana, so-called sixth chakra, okay? And to put it to work to, establishing your unity with God. So this is the best way to start working with the chakras. Of course, we have another course that we put in place earlier this year, marked the 11 Laws of God. You see that? So if you work with that course, what the Neteru are in the Kamitic tradition are the chakras in the Yogic tradition. You see that? Okay? And what we're going to do starting next month, we're going to have for the general public, meaning non-Osair members, we're going to have a monthly, Neteru or chakra meditation. You see that? And so on. I got to fix something that's falling out of place, you just give me a moment or all.
Sure.
In the meantime, talk to the audience, right?
All right. So yes, I just want to take this time to announce that there will be a formal Winter Solstice Osair and Ra course that will be fully released by this Sunday, December the 17th, in time for you to observe those important 4 days, the 21st to the 24th, that kicks off the winter cycle, and it will continue on through the months of January and February and into March. And within your course, you'll get instructions, and you'll also get support, as you heard, with group meditations and a cohort where you'll be able to share your experience and get your questions answered as you go along. So Sunday, you're going to hear another part in more detail about the course and how you can get involved. That's going to be on the 17th from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. If you're not able to make it in person in Brooklyn, we will be broadcasting. And there's a code that you can scan right here at the top, right under where it says Nicholas Brooklyn. That's the name of the venue that we'll be at. If you scan that code, then you can register for the broadcast. If you're coming in person, you don't need to scan the code. You can just come. It is a free lecture. And in addition to that, we are having spiritual readings, a limited number of spiritual readings. Some of you might want to get your destiny reading done, or you might want to get your some direction, spiritual direction on the year. What is the forecast and what faculties you might want to focus on to have a successful year. Again, that is a very limited opportunity. So if you're interested, you want to scan that and fill out that form. It is not free. The form has an error on it. It's $40 for the reading. And then you'll get support and further direction to be able to apply what the reading turns out to be through the materials in the Ma'at 11 Laws course. And as Sheikh Masheka mentioned, the monthly gatherings and meditations that we will be having. All right, so I'll put that up again at the very end. And so let us take just a few more questions here. Musa Blue says, is Buddhism of African origin?
No, Buddhism is, I won't say African, but it has a lot of Southeast Asia, cultural elements in it. You see that? Okay. Of course, the people from ancient Burma and so forth, you could call them African if you want to, but I because they're very, melanated people, many of them with hair like us in African and so on. And of course, but the thing is that Buddhism is there are two kinds. You see that? So the Buddhism of Siddhartha Gautama is definitely, Aryan, and the original Buddhism, which has the goddesses and the devas and so forth, is very much in tune with Africa. But the people themselves are Southeast Asians.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a matter of fact, when Siddhartha Gautama, began to teach Buddhism, he made his students, he told them not to practice with the mantras, and things of that nature. And when he died, his students, could not make Buddhism, the Siddhartha Gautama Buddhism, survive. So they put the mantras and goddesses back into Buddhism. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but and so if you go into the Buddhist canons, which is the Siddhartha Gautama, records, you'll find that they don't advocate the use of mantras and gods and goddesses. You see that?
Mm-hmm. So LaShonda McCullough, she says, how do I master my emotions? How do I master peace within myself?
Well, to master peace and emotions, you need to go through. You need to be taught how to do that. That's, because you're talking about, the emotions and the sensory manifestations are generated by psychical faculties within you. You see that? And they're also mediated by certain neurological structures within you. So if your emotions is not caused by a neurochemical imbalance, it's just psychical. Then now with the right meditations, with mantras and meditation truisms, in time you will gain mastery over them. If your emotions is caused by neurological imbalance, then you will have to, perhaps change your diet, or you may have to, use certain herbs, adaptogens, and herbs and food supplements and vitamins, whatever that improve your neurochemical, profile. And if it's severe, you might have to get a neurologist to assist you.
Hmm.
It all depends on where it's coming from.
And yes, Tony, you can register for the Winter Solstice course online. I see you're in the webinar room, so you did register for tonight. So we have your information. We will be sending you out an email as soon as the course is released. And any of you that are on YouTube or Facebook, where we don't have your registration, you can again scan that link at the end of the class, at the end of the session tonight, and we will have that and be able to contact you directly so that you can get in the class. And yes, the readings are only in person. And let's see here. We have, okay, Terry Jones says, when crafting your meditations, how do you know you have the right focus? I'm sorry, part of this is obscured. Oh, I can put it up here. You just showed that part. Okay. When crafting your meditations, how do you know you have the right focus?
Well, once more again, our course gives you detailed instructions on how, what mantras to use, okay, what chakras and party spirits to arouse, and what affirmations, and spiritual injunctions you need to apply for towards a specific end. So that is covered by the course. You see that. In other words, when you're a student, you need directions, you need guidance, so you need to go with a course. Because meditation is just not simply sitting silent, and being and relaxing. It's the process by which you awaken psychical, and brain structures within you, and then engage in, directives, spiritual laws and truths to change and alter your behavior as well as your social environment.
And I put a banner up on the screen for those of you. We have a number of people that are new with us. There are hours and hours of webinars like this, free information that you can get on our Soundwise platform. So just go to that address, mysoundwise.com. It's an app that you can get on your phone or on your computer. And then when you search for Kamitic Legacy, you'll find those lectures. There's a number of lectures on the chakras. And to your question, there's a number of testimonials about many students' experience in verifying the efficacy, the effectiveness of the method of meditation, Kamitic meditation, and the various mantras and so forth. Let's see here. We also have, where is it? The chat's moving kind of fast. Question was never shared one of those. Okay, so this person, ADA, says, I often get confused about worshiping God and becoming God. When I think of prayers, am I praying to who I wish to become, or am I praying to the Father? If our purpose is to become God Himself, I think that should be is our purpose, to become God Himself in our evolution.
Okay, very good question. Okay. First of all, we are not God. We are endowed with, similar qualities that God has. You see that? Okay, we are endowed with divine faculties that lifts us above the human, experience. Meaning that, as divine beings, we can create with our spirit. We can influence events with our mind and our spirit. Okay, but not in the same quantitative, space that God has. You see that? Okay, meaning, the same way that God creates, the same faculties that God creates the universe, we can use it to manipulate our lives. So when we speak about becoming a God man and God woman, we're speaking about a person being able, okay, to exert control over their lives. This is through spiritual and mental activities. Okay, so when you pray to God, you are praying to one that has similar powers as you, but much greater. You see that? Okay, you are a smaller version of the same kind of entity, the same in quality, but not in quantity. You're like the drop of water in an ocean. You see that? A drop of water has the same qualities as the ocean of water, but you cannot sail a ship in that drop of water. But you have the same life-giving properties as the ocean of water. So I hope these metaphors help for you to understand your sameness and differences from God.
And we have a new Amenhotep who says, does trauma affect your ability to work through the chakras?
Absolutely. Trauma is something that you want to heal. You see that? And all depends on the trauma, meaning that, when you approach meditation, from a holistic perspective, you find that the yogic system, prescribes Ayurvedic, remedies, meaning that they just don't tell you meditate. They give you herbal formulas to take, along with your meditation work. They give you exercises, asanas to do to begin to heal yourself. Okay, so if you didn't have these proper dietary prescriptions and certain herbs and did not do the asanas, the postures or whatever, and just meditated, you might find the going, very challenging. So try to learn to have a holistic approach to your spiritual work. And we will be talking about those tips, giving you those tips for you to apply in your Winter Solstice course.
On that note, Shechem, it's in some of the questions, and forgive me for not being able to get everybody's question up tonight. I know there are individuals that have inquired about going into these type of practices, meditation, working with mantras and chakras, if they are still involved in a lifestyle where they might be drinking alcohol, or even if they stop for that period, or maybe using recreational drugs or things like that. Is there a danger if you have been exposed to those type of things to these practices?
Well, not in themselves. The danger would be that you may not achieve your goal and waste your time and your money. You see, there are some people though who might have already certain psychological imbalances. Okay, that and they might, be under the influence, you see, along with the psychological imbalances while they're trying to perform certain, meditations and so on. It's like the person a while ago spoke about the divinity. You see that. Okay, if you unbalance yourself, okay, with drugs or whatever, you might have a hyper, reaction to the belief in your divinity and start to walk down the street as if you're God and, and getting in trouble. But for the most part, we haven't had that problem in the 50 years. You see that. Okay, in the 50 years, we've had members who it took them a while to give up the nicotine and the alcohol and things of that nature, and the meditations and the yoga, whatever, helped them to get off. You see that.
And Yemaya Superconscious and Aglin says, during the solstice, should we focus on all the faculties or the first 4 faculties or Osair?
Okay, so now she's speaking about the multi-living laws course, right? The first 4 would be, the guide for that would be the multi-living laws, correct?
2.
Okay. Okay, Yemaya, what we have done is that we have upgraded greatly, the work, okay? Focusing on the Osair faculty, the Tehute faculty, the Herit chakra, as well as the chakras of the Swadhisthana and the Vishuddha, okay? So we have upgraded our, work. But, so if you don't buy the course, our present course, and you want to approach it with the multi-11 laws, then you can focus on the first 4 chakras, the first 4, modules that we have in the multi-11 laws. But if you want a better understanding, a better result from the winter work, purchase our Winter Solstice course. Because you see, the focal point is the reactivation and renewal and strengthening of your, your oneness with God, and the purification of the Swadhisthana chakra, which is not covered in multi-11 laws of God.
And Kevra Osair says, how do we grow spiritually if what we do as a career or as a society contributes to world destruction?
Well, it depends on what level are you involved in that career. If you're a low man on the totem pole, okay, then a job is a job, and meditate, do the Winter Solstice meditation, and see your person, moving out of that situation into a better situation, in a cleaner situation. It will happen. You see that. If you're high on the totem pole, where you're making decisions that are destroying people, then my suggestion to you is to leave yesterday.
All right. So I know there are more, but we are an hour and a half in, and we need to wrap things up. So Shechem, I definitely want to give you the closing words on what people can expect from the course and Sunday's presentation, and how they will be able to progress.
Yes, well, the most important accomplishment in spirituality is establishing your union with God. You see, people think that, when they approach spirituality, they think that they're doing a great thing when they practice yoga or they just meditate, chanting a mantra for wealth and well-being. If your spiritual work does not unite you with God, then you are far from being in a place where you can truly benefit from your spiritual work. The most important thing, if you did nothing else, establish your union with God. You see that? And that is, the power of the winter months. Is the most receptive time of the year for you to make the biggest uh, changes in your life. It's the most receptive time of the year for you to go into the meditation state to establish and to renew and strengthen your oneness with God. And we have devoted ourselves to improving this winter solstice presentation to enable you with due diligence to achieve that goal. You see that, to get closer to God and get to that point where you will lay the seeds to free yourself from suffering. That's the other, what do you do with your oneness with God? Free yourself from suffering. When you're free from suffering, it's because you're in a perpetual state of peace and the enjoyment of peace. So that joy energy, which is the solar force within you, is strengthening every thought and feeling that you have, towards your well-being, your success, and the well-being of success of the people that you love. So keep in mind the most important goal of spiritual work, your union with God. Achieve that, and you will achieve everything that is possible in this world, because nobody can contend with God. Peace and blessing to all of you.
All right. Well, Shekim, on behalf of everybody that's online, we really appreciate you taking this time, having a chance to talk with you on occasion. I know that you have massive projects ahead of you, many more works that you are in the process of developing. So we appreciate you spending this hour and a half with us and look forward to seeing you on Sunday. If anybody agrees with that, let's have some fire in the chat here. Yes. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. All right. So at this time, as we prepare to let Shekim go, you can hang on. I'm going to put those. Yes. All right. I'm going to put those QR codes up for you again, and also share with some of you. I saw some questions, information on how you can get your calendar of the cycles for this year. So Shekim, on behalf of everyone, I'd like to say to you, Un Nefer Amen, power, peace, and blessings. And thank you so much for being with us tonight.
I'd like to say blessings and hotep to everyone in the audience, and thank you for sharing this evening with us.
All right. Tepu. All right. So once again, I want to let you know about the Soundwise, right? Especially those of you that are new with us. Let's see, here we go. mysoundwise.com. It's an app. If you go to your app store or you go to your Google Play Store on your Android or your iPhone or whatever platform you're on, and you look up the app, it's called mysoundwise. It has an orange logo with a light bulb and headphones. You'll see that. And it's free. So you can put that app on your phone, and then you go in and you search for Kamitic Legacy. That's Kamitic Legacy. And you'll find that there is a cache of probably some 20 or so webinars like what you experienced tonight. We have 2 webinars in there on chakras, where Shekim went some 3 hours between the 2 of them, explaining these 14 chakras and their function and the origin and how it relates to our spiritual practice and so on. So as you prepare yourself for the course, you definitely want to, take advantage of that information. I know some of you are looking for the Light on Kundalini Yoga. You're on our mailing list now, so we'll let you know when you can get a copy of that. But the information is right there. Ma'at 11 laws, the power of breathing, many different topics, meditation, overcoming grief and sadness, how to improve your performance, change your behavior. It's a very, very rich resource. And, you know, one of the things we want to do at this time of year is start to turn down the distraction and the entertainment and, you know, all of those things that when you look back, you know, if you're binge watching on Netflix and you're, you know, like all of us, right, indulging all this entertainment, at the end of the year, you look back, it's not like you can ever scratch that itch, right? You got to watch some more. It doesn't accumulate. But all the books you read, the lectures that you listen to, the meditations you have, it does accumulate. So you want to start putting that in your ear. You want to start listening to this type of information and preparing yourself to go within. So that's where you get to that mysoundwise.com. Kamitic Legacy. Once again, next Sunday, we'll see you at 7 p.m. on this stream or live in Brooklyn at 1396 Fulton Street at Nicholas, Brooklyn. And if you are able to get there early and you want to get a reading, you can scan a code. So these are the two codes one more time. The top one is to register for the Winter Solstice Part 2 and the release of the course, which would take place on 12/17 Sunday at Nicholas, Brooklyn, 7 p.m. So just scan that code. If you'd like to get a spiritual reading, you scan the code on the bottom. So I will also like to show you Sheikh Masheka mentioned the cycles of the month and the Paut Neteru. It is actually a calendar that he developed over all of these years of Osair set that we have been following. And I've been fortunate to be able to put that into a form so that you can have that as a reference. That 2024 calendar is available now. You can get it at Nicholas if you're in Brooklyn. It's in stock there, as well as the 2024 journal. So as we close, I'm just going to play a little preview.
It's coming. The truth will be the light. New way. It's coming. It's gonna be. It's gonna be paradise. Come on, choir. We got it. Oh, yes, we Take that step.
Over the hills, up the mountain, to the top, taking a step. No more spills from the fountain. We won't stop, taking a step.
Take that step.
Over the moon, over the sun, we will continue to take that step.
Take that step.
Over the moon, over the sun, we will continue to take that step.
Yeah.
Made it this far, we have to keep on. No one will stop us, taking a step. Flying to that stop, singing our song, sweep away the dust, taking a step. Over the moon, over the sun, we will continue to take that step. Over the moon, over the sun, we will continue to take that step. Higher heights, moving on, stepping on, taking that step. Keep up.
All right. So you can get your calendar, you can get your journal at Nicholas in Brooklyn, or you can go online to kamitastrologycalendar.com. www.kamitastrologycalendar.com and order yours in time to plan out your 2024. Right? We will be shipping more this weekend. So again, thank you so much for being with us. All right. And we will see you again soon. Peace and blessings.
On a journey to find peace within my life. It's time to let go so I can climb to new heights. Nothing can stop me, I know, gonna make it to the end. Love is on my side, and I'm sure I'm gonna win. I wanna know the truth. I wanna know the truth. I wanna know the truth. Can you tell me? I wanna know the truth. I wanna know the truth. I want to know the truth. Can you tell me? It's been a long time that I've been searching for. Then one thing that makes my life complete. And I'm gonna hold on. I'm gonna be strong. 'Cause in my heart, truth I'll always see. I wanna know, I'm gonna know. The truth. Can you tell me? I wanna know. I wanna know the truth. I wanna know the truth. I wanna know the truth. Can you tell me? We are living in a world of so many illusions, so much confusions. I need a strong foundation, the pearl of truth that separates the dark from light, from day and night. Help me change and sacrifice the wrong from the
How can I find the truth? Let me count the ways. I can focus on my ancestors to brighten up my day. I can listen to a sage or an elder's wise words. Try some deep meditation where the Most High is served. Because the truth is beautiful, like children playing in the park. Or inside of rhyme ciphers where genius is spark. Be the dark, the light, and all the time that's in between. And you can find mad truth inside a trance states and dream. Listen to that little voice if he telling you for true. And with a bit of divination, show you what you gonna do. Whether it comes abstract or the stone hard fact. Cause if it comes from God, it be the truth, that's that. Yo, no need to question, just learn the lesson. And ain't no stretching cause it's truth we're manifesting. Like what? Like what? What? 1, 2, I wanna know the truth.
Can you tell me? Can you let me know? I need to know the truth. Can you tell me? I really want to know the truth. I wanna know. I gotta know. I need to know the truth. I wanna know. I gotta know. I chimney,